Ukrainian Leopard tank was deployed to defend against this large Russian column. The Leopard tank waits for an opportunity to strike this Russian vehicle, and the first shot causes the tank to explode. The second strike also lands on its target, and the third strike destroys another vehicle. After the lead vehicles of the column were struck and destroyed with heavy damage, the rest of the column attempted to turn around and retreat. However, they exposed their side armor, and the Ukrainian tank took advantage of this. Soon, Russian tank crews were abandoning their vehicles, but for the Ukrainian Leopard tank, the fighting was not over. The Leopard tank fired multiple shots to destroy the retreating vehicles. The strikes were intended to prevent Russian forces from regrouping and launching another attack toward Ukrainian positions. The Leopard tank then moved forward and destroyed the Russian vehicles that had retreated a few miles away and were stationary. A costly mistake in combat. The final target was destroyed, and the Russian assault was fully repelled. In the war in Ukraine, one of the most lethal weapons in Ukrainian service is the German-manufactured Leopard tank. Western-supplied Leopard tanks in Ukrainian service include the Leopard 2A4, Leopard 2A5, and Leopard 2A6 variants. These German-manufactured main battle tanks are equipped with a 120 mm smoothbore gun, advanced fire control systems, and composite armor designed to provide a balance of mobility, protection, and firepower on the battlefield. In intense combat, when Ukrainian forces are on the offensive, Leopard tanks typically provide protection for infantry fighting vehicles and operate at close range to deliver firepower against Russian positions. This helps ensure the safe deployment of infantry. Leopard tanks are also used in high-risk combat environments such as urban areas, where enemy forces can use numerous concealed positions to fire anti-tank weapons. Intelligence and risk assessments are conducted whenever possible before deploying a high-value asset to combat. In this mission, the Leopard tank crew had already identified the occupied building, engaged the target, completed the mission, and withdrew from the area. In some cases, these high-risk urban operations result in equipment losses and casualties for Ukrainian forces. This incident occurred in March 2026, when a Ukrainian Leopard tank was surprised by Russian drone operators. However, even older Leopard 2A4 models are equipped with multi-layer composite armor designed to withstand significant battlefield threats, and the Russian kamikaze drones were unable to penetrate the tank despite multiple strikes. In the final captured footage, a Russian reconnaissance drone observed a small fire on the tank. Reports indicate that the crew survived unharmed and attributed their survival to the Leopard's armor. They continued to return to combat, citing confidence in the tank's survivability. In this Leopard tank mission, a reconnaissance drone monitors the area and records the firepower of the tank as it engages buildings occupied by Russian forces. Leopard tanks are equipped with a 120 mm smoothbore gun, capable of firing high-explosive and armor-piercing munitions, supported by advanced fire control systems for accurate engagement. Buildings in Ukraine that were once residential structures have also been weakened by artillery strikes and other combat damage, making them more fragile. And in such conditions, only a few Leopard tank rounds can bring down entire apartment buildings. Smoke begins to rise from the building, and successive strikes lead to a complete collapse as the structure gives way under sustained fire. The building begins to collapse following repeated strikes, and the Leopard tank completes its mission, having neutralized the target before withdrawing from the area. Leopard 1A5 tanks from the 5th Tank Battalion are operating in close combat in urban areas, engaging Russian positions in the villages of Tsukurino, Ilinka, and Sontsivka in the Donetsk region. The Leopard 1A5 is an upgraded German main battle tank with a 105 mm gun and improved fire control system. In Ukraine, it relies on mobility, positioning, and coordination rather than heavy armor, operating mainly in fire support roles and avoiding direct exposure to advanced anti-tank threats on the battlefield. The Ukrainian tank crew uses the first building as cover while engaging Russian positions. Smoke and sustained fire also reduce the risk from anti-tank weapons. The reconnaissance drone also plays a key role in the operation, monitoring the battlefield and providing real-time intelligence. It identifies targets, tracks enemy movement, and guides the Leopard tank's fire, improving accuracy and coordination, and supporting effective engagement of Russian positions while reducing exposure to threats. Overall, the mission was successful for Ukrainian forces. Several countries have supplied Leopard tanks to Ukraine, including Germany, Poland, Canada, Spain, Norway, and other European states. In total, roughly 100 Leopard 2 tanks and more than 100 Leopard 1 tanks have been pledged and delivered. Reported losses remain limited, with a portion damaged or destroyed, while most continue to operate or undergo repair and return to service. In this first-person footage, a Ukrainian Leopard 2A4 tank uses smoke cover to deliver precision strikes on pre-identified targets with its 120 mm cannon. The crew's actions are monitored and adjusted with support from a reconnaissance drone. This Ukrainian drone is equipped with a thermal camera that detects heat signatures, and as seen in the footage, tanks generate strong thermal visibility, especially while moving, making them easier to detect and track on the battlefield even through smoke, darkness, or partially concealed positions. The Leopard tank then fired multiple rounds toward enemy positions until the reconnaissance drone confirmed the targets had been destroyed. The tank later withdrew from the area after successfully completing the mission. This captured footage shows how Russian forces use tanks and other armored vehicles against Ukrainian positions. In April 2025, around 320 personnel, 40 armored combat vehicles, 3 tanks, and nearly a dozen buggies from several regiments of Russia's 58th Combined Arms Army of the Southern Military District were involved in the operation. Russian forces primarily use T-72 series tanks in Ukraine, including the modernized T-72B3 variant, which features improved optics, reactive armor, and upgraded fire control systems. These tanks are commonly used to support infantry assaults, defend positions, and provide direct fire against Ukrainian fortifications. Russia has also deployed T-90 tanks in some sectors, typically in higher priority operations due to their newer protection and targeting systems. In Russian armored assaults, tanks are commonly supported by armored personnel carriers that transport infantry toward frontline positions. These vehicles work together by combining firepower, mobility, and troop deployment during attacks. Tanks provide direct fire against defensive positions, while armored vehicles such as the BTR-82 move infantry closer to the battlefield, support advancing units, and help secure captured positions during the assault. However, large-scale assaults involving significant numbers of tanks and armored vehicles are highly vulnerable once detected in advance. In this case, aerial reconnaissance units of Ukraine's Southern Defense Forces identified the advancing Russian columns early, allowing FPV drones and artillery units to deliver preemptive strikes against the assault force. The first damage occurred nearly 8 kilometers before the column reached the front line, and infantry units were forced to dismount early as vehicles came under constant drone and artillery strikes. Soon, the vehicles at the rear of the column had to maneuver past destroyed vehicles burning along the roadside. The open terrain and early detection made it difficult for Russian forces to carry out the attack successfully. However, retreat is often avoided during these operations, and surviving vehicles are frequently regrouped or repositioned before taking part in another assault. The battle lasted more than 2.5 hours. Russian losses reportedly included 29 destroyed vehicles and 140 personnel killed, while 3 additional tanks were damaged. No Ukrainian positions were lost during the engagement. Ukrainian forces relied primarily on artillery and remotely operated drones to repel and destroy the attacking force. That being said, the battle also demonstrated that armored units are not always required when reconnaissance, artillery, and drone coordination are sufficient to stop an advancing assault. If you stayed until the end, feel free to see more footage from the world's most critical conflict zones. Stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll see you next time on Iron Pulse Media.